You know how many leaders have said, "Hey, I'm here to make this country great again, make it the best country on planet Earth, make it." Everybody says that.
Swing a cat, you'll hit 4 of them.
Yeah, right. Where do you get this shit from, dude? I love it. So now we've got the rise and fall of fascist leaders. So let's go ahead and get into it. Since I get this tab open, and I didn't because I deleted it. So now I'm going to have to bring it back up again.
Oh, man, why would you do that?
I know, right? What's wrong with me? I suck. There it is. All right. Here we go.
It's 1902. A young man by the name of Benito Mussolini moves from Italy to Switzerland to avoid military service. He gets big into socialism, working for trade unions, writing for socialist newspapers, advocating a violent overthrow of European monarchies, the whole shebang. This gets him in a bit of trouble with the Swiss police, so he gets arrested, sent back to Italy, set free, returns to Switzerland, is arrested again, goes back to Italy again, completes his military service after previously avoiding it, and then after a brief stint as an elementary school teacher, he finally returns to work as an avid socialist. His speeches and journalistic abilities made him famous among Italian socialists. He was anti-war, so when Italy colonized Libya in 1910, he rioted and got arrested. Then World War I came along, and once again he protested Italy's involvement. But then he thought, wait a minute, this war could bring about the social climate needed to overthrow European monarchies and bring about the socialist revolution everywhere. And suddenly he was pro-war. But his fellow socialists didn't like his new pro-war stance, so they kicked him out of the party. So then he said, you know what? I'm done with socialism. We need something new, not based on class divisions tearing us apart, but based on unity through nationality. We'll conquer the Mediterranean and reunite all Italian peoples just like the days of the Roman Empire. I'll call it Fascismo, and it will guide the Italian nation to greatness. That's all well and good, Mr. Mussolini, but what kind of haircut am I giving you? Let's go with bold.
Oh man, that was great.
I'm offended as someone who doesn't get a choice in that haircut style.
Don't worry, I'll be there in about 2 or 3 years. This is called my insecurity helmet. But anyways, so obviously, you got Mussolini. He founded the Italian Fascist Party in 1919, exploiting economic turmoil and social unrest. He promised to restore Italy's power and glory to 1922. He led the March on Rome, which resulted in King Victor Emmanuel III inviting Mussolini to a form of government. By 1925, Mussolini had established a dictatorial regime. So that was on his rise. Now, on his fall, Mussolini alliance with Nazi Germany during World War II led military defeats and a loss of support. In 1943, he was disposed and arrested. Although rescued by German forces, his second stint in power was short-lived. In 1945, as the Allies advanced into Italy, Mussolini was captured and executed by Italian partisans.
Wow. So Joe's got something to look forward to here. No, really. He wanted Italy to be strong. He wanted the Italy of today's old. And I understand that. Going back and identifying the areas where your national identity was great, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with saying here in America, the 1950s, we had a major economic boom, the likes of which I don't think we're ever going to see again, truly, despite the rising stock market as we have it now. All Americans in 1950s were doing great. And bad things happened, in 64. Around the time that one fella got taken care of by the CIA, other things were happening to take away from that growth that we saw.
Yeah, and I think we finally got to see the end of that during COVID.
I hope so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I mean, you have to remember, like, basically what they did is they took whatever growth that we had and either took it for themselves or they gave it away.
Well, they took it for themselves. They don't give anything away.
Right. Yeah.
That's way too altruistic there.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's move on to our next fascist dictator.
Oh, here's everyone's favorite. They always get it wrong. This isn't the worst one.
He's missing the mustache.
Look at this baby. So gentle, so innocent. You'd think this child would grow up to become a good man, an honest man. Well, think again. Hitler was born Adolphus Hitler in 1889 in a small town in Austria-Hungary. His father, Alois Schicklgruber, was born out of wedlock, but eventually changed his name to that of his stepfather, becoming Alois Hitler. Alois was a mid-level customs officer.
Pause it, Roma.
In cap.
Go back to what his dad's name was.
Oh, man.
In Austria-Hungary. His father, Alois Schicklgruber, was born out of...
Yeah, I'd change that name too.
Yeah, right? Jesus Christ. Take a look at the Schicklgloobers.
wedlock, but eventually changed his name to that of his stepfather, becoming Alois Hitler. Alois was a mid-level Austrian customs officer, not really rolling in cash, but certainly rolling in women. He married a rich, older lady, but then immediately started having affairs, including one with a much younger house servant. A few years later, he left his sick wife to be with his mistress, but since the Catholic Church didn't allow divorce at the time, he couldn't marry her. So he waited for his old wife to die and had a child in the meantime. Then his wife died, so he married his mistress and had another child. But then his new wife got sick, so he employed his much younger cousin Clara to take care of her. Then when his new wife died, he immediately got Clara, his cousin, pregnant, and then married her. In that order, you rock star. Clara and Alois had 3 children together, who all tragically died while in infancy. So when the 4th child, Adolf, came along, Clara spoiled him rotten. The Hitlers had 2 more kids, and the family moved around a few times, meaning Adolf had to attend 5 different elementary schools. Adolf's father was strict, quick to anger, and took most of it out on the eldest son until he had enough and ran away at the age of 14, leaving 7-year-old Adolf to do most of the chores and get berated by his father. The result was a difficult relationship with his dad while he was super attached to his mother, who worried over him and his health excessively. Hitler did well in school at first. His grades were good and his teacher...
Who did?
I think Freud had a word for that.
Yeah, right. We'll get back to that video in a second, but obviously the superstar of World War II, Adolf Hitler, joined the National Socialist German Workers' Party in the Nazi Party in 1919 and became its first leader in 1921, capitalized on post-World War I economic hardship, national humiliation, and fear of communism. After a failed coup in 1923, he used legal means to gain power, becoming chancellor in 1933. Following the Reichstag fire, he used emergency powers to eliminate opposition and establish a totalitarian regime.
Still, he was disappointed in himself. He had high standards. He was trying to keep up with the standards of Stalin and Mao, and he couldn't do it.
Just couldn't do it. Not at all. Well, let's continue.
Praised him. He was popular with the other kids and enjoyed gathering them together to play war games. He also loved reading and particularly liked stories about cowboys and Indians.
What does that say? Bro, who made this video?
Oh, wow. Where'd you find this?
This is great. I want to keep watching.
As he grew older, though, he started to get into trouble. He was caught smoking once, organized a raid on a local orchard, tormented his pro-Austria religion teacher with symbolic gestures, displaying his allegiance to the idea of united Germanic people under a greater German state in defiance of Habsburg Austria. You know, the usual. All of this enraged Adolf's father, who punished him severely. The area of Austria-Hungary that Hitler lived in was once part of the German Confederation, and many of the people who lived there considered themselves to be German. Adolf tended to just go against whatever his father said, and since his father was an Austrian public official, Hitler got big into German nationalism. This enraged Adolf's father, who punished him severely. Around this time, family tragedy struck. His 6-year-old brother...
I'm beginning to think he just secretly liked the spankings.
I mean, there are some other information about him that we didn't really know about, that were kind of rumors. But that we'll just leave it at that.
Brother, whom he loved a lot, died of measles when Adolf was 10 and was buried in the cemetery.
You guys didn't know this is oversimplified clips on YouTube. This guy is amazing. He does a lot of short cartoon content, and does a very good explanations on a lot of history. So you guys should check him out.
just across from their home. Around this time, neighbors reported a change in the young boy. Strange behaviors such as talking to trees and staying up late staring at the stars from the cemetery walls. He lost interest in religion, and his school grades started to decline, which enraged his father, who punished him severely. It also didn't help that he had just entered high school, and the cool city boys treated him like a rural peasant. He had to repeat a grade and had little interest in most school subjects, instead spending his time reading and drawing, which he was quite good at. One day his father said, "Son, someday you'll be a big balls public official like me." And Adolf replied, "No, father, I'm going to become an artist and soar high above the clouds with the eagles." This enraged his father, but by this time he was an old-ass man, so he just sort of let it go, and then died of a lung hemorrhage. Hitler just about
one
passed
more
his final
spanking would have
semester.
fixed this.
It would have. That was it. That was it.
That was the turning point. One more spanking, and he'd have been like, "All right, fine. I'm not going to be an artist, but I'm going to be a good leader."
Yep. But no. All right. Continue.
And celebrated in the
We're
typical way
almost done
by
now.
getting blackout drunk and wiping his ass with the certificate. However, he didn't take the overall final school exam, instead just dropping out. The now 16-year-old boy was unemployed, without much purpose in life, and for the next 3 years, he stayed that way. He spent most of his time at the opera with his only friend, August Kubizek. Kubizek later wrote his memories of the young Hitler and said he was passionately interested in many things, felt he was in many ways better than others his age, was quick to anger just like his father, and an incredible speaker once he was ranting. When he was 18, he said a very sad goodbye to his mother and went to Vienna to take the entrance exam for art school. He failed. Soon after, he had to
Squirrel.
return home. His mother was sick, and her health was rapidly deteriorating. Hitler stayed by her side, and when she eventually died, the family doctor said he had never seen someone so overwhelmed with grief as Hitler was. Then Hitler returned to Vienna, still hoping to find a career in the arts, but he never did. Instead, without parental support, Hitler ended up on the streets. Now in his early 20s, he spent a few rough years living in and out of homeless shelters, making what little he could from selling postcards he painted. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when and how Hitler's extreme ideological beliefs formed, but his time in Vienna would have certainly played a role. Anti-Semitism was widespread.
Well, I mean, if you really think about it, first you were abused by your father, you lost your brother, you lost your mother at a young age. You really didn't have any guidance. So at some point there had to be like a he somebody had to take him under his wing. I think that's what they were talking about here.
Yeah, he didn't have an actual role. I mean, he truly never had a role model growing up. All he had was an abusive father, and that absolutely shaped him.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, there were probably a number of people in his life through his 20s that could have actually taken him under their wing and provided the guidance that he needed. He was a good speaker. Hate the man all you want. The guy could move a crowd.
You really could. And this is where people get the comparison between himself and Trump, where they're like, look at all the crowds that he brings in. Look at the nationalism. It's like, yeah, but two things can be common and uncommon at the same time.
Well,
Like-
hey, Hitler said the word "the" once, and Donald Trump says "the" all the time.
Therefore-
Coincidence?
Donald Trump is Hitler.
That's the argument that they make, right? Just because somebody said something in history doesn't mean that you espouse their values. If, for example, I read the dictionary, technically I have read every book in existence. I just got to formulate the words in a right order to get that result.
Yeah, and every CIA document, which, by the way, watch out. But you know how many leaders have said, "Hey, I'm here to make this country great again, make it the best country on planet Earth, make it."
Swing a cat,
Everybody says that.
swing a cat, you'll hit 4 of them.
Yeah, right. Where do you get this shit from, dude? I love it. All right, let's continue. We're almost done.
In the city, the mayor, whom Hitler supported, was an outspoken anti-Semite. There were many right-wing anti-Semitic newsletters, which Hitler took a keen interest in. He bought into the conspiracy theories and became a firm believer in the idea that there are many races in constant struggle with one another, the purest of which were the German Aryan people, and the worst of which, he believed, were Jews. Since Austria-Hungary was a multi-ethnic empire full of lesser races, Hitler wasn't a fan. So when he was 24, he moved to Munich in Germany to avoid doing military service, and for one more year he was a drifter on the streets, until something huge happened. In 1914, long-standing tensions in Europe erupted into the First World War. Crowds across Europe celebrated the news. Within days, Hitler volunteered for the German army. The war gave him a purpose in life. His fellow soldiers gave him friendship and brotherhood. Despite the horrors of war, Hitler considered it to be the best time of his life. He was reportedly a brave soldier and was awarded the Iron Cross, first class. He was also very lucky and had many close encounters with death. His luck ran out in 1916, however, when an artillery shell injured his leg. He went back to Germany to recover and was outraged to find a general apathetic anti-war attitude among the exhausted and hungry German populace. With the war turning against Germany, he returned to the front lines, but was temporarily blinded by a British gas attack in 1918. A month later, still recovering in hospital, Hitler learned of Germany's defeat and surrender. The terms of the peace treaty were tough on Germany. It had to pay a lot of money.
Who remembers that? The Treaty of Versailles.
Ooh, I did. I paid attention in school.
Go.
I'm not going to recite it. I mean,
Well, not
No,
recite it, but I mean, essentially, it was the destruction of the what do you call it? The German economy. That's basically.
it slapped Germany for all of its transgressions.
Mhm.
They were able to fund everything because they had a great economy. Go figure.
Exactly. Well, anyways, so we all know where this is going. So, obviously, the fall of Adolf Hitler, his aggressive expansion led to World War II, initially successful. The tide turned with key defeats such as Stalingrad in 1943, and then by 1945, Allied forces closed on Berlin. Hitler committed suicide in his bunker, allegedly. On April 30th, 1945, as Soviet troops entered the city, marking the collapse of the Third Reich. The end.
It's for the best. I
Yeah,
mean,
it was.
I noticed something when watching this though.
Mhm.
You know, we both watch a fellow named Tim Pool.
Yes.
I now know where they draw this distinction and say Tim is this fascist, far right extremist. It's because Tim's a skateboarder. And there is nothing more iconic in the skateboarding industry than the Iron Cross on a multitude of skateboard products.
Mhm.
Therefore, skateboarders are Nazis.
I hope you guys are seeing this logic here. We're obviously being, I don't know, being
I-
facetious.
no. I am not being serious. I am just trying to rationalize the. Can I say my favorite word on this show, Roma? Begins with an R.
Shoot.
I'm trying to understand the retardation of society and how they come to these logical conclusions that are so far off base because somebody in the past did a thing and suddenly I am tied to that because I said one word out of this entire 4,000 word speech. It makes no sense.
Yeah, and apparently Ian Crossland, he was a far right extremist. I mean, he only wanted Palestine to be the 51st state.
Dude, I don't know what he was on that night. I'm not going to speculate, but I was floored when he said that.
I think the entire chat stopped. It was like, like, wait, what?
Wait, go back. Did he just say what I think he said? It made no sense. But let's continue on because that's another rabbit hole we don't need to go down
Yeah,
tonight.
absolutely.